Welcome to an introduction to PSEL Standards. In this video, NPBEA Executive Director Dr. Jackie Wilson provides an overview of the PSEL Standards and is joined by Dr. Michael Saylor, Education Associate from the Delaware Department of Education. Delaware was the first state to adopt the PSEL Standards and align their entire system of support for school leaders to the standards.
Today, we would like to talk with you about the professional standards for educational leaders. We will spend some time providing you information on how the standards were developed and how the standards can be used to improve your professional practice. It is very hard to reach a goal if you do not have a target. These aspirational standards for educational leaders provide a target for what practitioners and the researchers show lead to effective practice, resulting in higher levels of student achievement and well-being. So let's get started. So why new professional standards? The schools that you and I walk in today are different from the schools we attended. They are different from the schools we may gone to or have taught in. They are more diverse, complex, and challenging. The principals we prepare to lead these schools must lead a team of teachers and a support staff who prepare students for the 21st century workplace. They must be politically savvy, entrepreneurial, understand curriculum and instruction, and how to support and grow teachers. They must be leaders of equity, inclusive, and culture builders. They must also understand how to build a team of teacher leaders who are focused on making sure each child is provided the resources he or she needs to be successful. They must be talent managers and advocates for their students and staff. The job is challenging, but the rewards are great. The professional standards for educational leaders provide state policy leaders with national standards that are the foundation for the educational leaders schools need. Our schools need highly effective leaders who demonstrate the kind of leadership described in the PSEL standards. PSEL is the third set of national standards for educational leaders. In 1996, the Interstate School Leaders Licensure Consortium developed the first national standards for education leaders. The NPBEA secured the funding to develop the standards from the Pew Foundation. In an effort to prevent duplication, the responsibility for the development of the standards was shifted to the Council for Chief State School Officers. The newly formed Interstate School Leaders Consortium consisted of 24 states and members of the National Policy Board for Educational Administration. Together, they crafted the first set of national standards for school administrators that came to be known as the ISLIC Standards for School Leaders in 1996. The standards were updated or refreshed in 2008, but it was soon decided that a new set of standards needed to be developed that were more fully reflective of the challenges of preparing students to succeed in the 21st century. This time, the National Policy Board for Educational Administration took a more central role in guiding the development of the new professional standards for educational leadership known as PSEL. NPBEA also formally assumed ownership of the new standards from CCSSO in 2016. Although the 2008 ISLIC standards were good and 48 states had adopted or adapted the ISLIC standards, society changes. Students change. We had new knowledge and understanding from research and from practitioners. We also learned so much about leadership and the evolution of leadership work. We were seeing a transformation in the educational system and society. So how were the professional standards for educational leadership, PSEL, developed? The work was a 2-year process. There was a substantial involvement of the profession, including more than 1,000 practicing educational leaders, participation from members of the professional organizations that included AASA, superintendents, NAESP elementary principals, NASSP middle and high school principals, and CCSSO state secretaries and commissioners. I was fortunate to serve as co-chair on the Standards Update Project Committee with the chairperson, Dr. Joseph Murphy, who was the original chair of the ISLIC Standards Committee. The Field Knowledge Committee was led by Dr. Terry Orr from Fordham University and Gail Connolly, who was the executive director of NAESP. Delaware's Secretary of Education, Susan Bunting, served on this committee. The work group for completing the standards was led by Dr. Mark Smiley of University of Illinois and Dr. Beverly Hutton from the National Association of Secondary School Principals. It is important that standards be based on empirical evidence. The PSEL standards were determined by looking at the research in several areas: educational leadership, educational organization and improvement, curriculum, instruction and learning environments, student learning, school, family and community relations, equity and social, cultural context. But research alone was not the only thing the committee looked at. The committee listened to the expertise and experience from practitioners, principals, superintendents, and district leaders who talked about their work. The standards were developed using the professional norms and ethics that are so important to the profession. If you want to read more about the standards, there is a 360-page review and discussion of the empirical and ethical foundations of the standards written by the chair of the committee, Dr. Joseph Murphy. The professional standards for educational leadership have an emphasis on students and learning, and there was an emphasis on using the term each student. The academic success and broader learning and development and the well-being of children is also emphasized in the new standards. All domains of leadership work are linked to students, and there is a logic of leadership to learning. Student learning is at the center of the standards. If you look at the diagram, you can see that student learning is centered to the 4 areas of the standards. The standards are grouped intentionally in this diagram by how they work together to enhance student learning. The standards are systematic in design with relationships among and across the standards using the domains and elements described in the leadership work and the leadership roles of educational leaders such as principals, assistant principals, district leaders, teacher leaders. The standards are for all levels of the educational system, including leaders of school and districts. The standards are also inclusive of various contexts where students learn, including the school and community, both urban, suburban, and rural. The standards are organized by 3 logic clusters. We call them the drivers, the core, and the support. The drivers include Standard 1, mission, vision, and core values. Standard 2, ethics and professional norms. Standard 3, equity and cultural responsiveness. Standard 10, school improvement. The core include Standard 4, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Standard 5, community of care and support for students. The supports include Standard 6, professional capacity of school personnel. Standard 7, professional community for teachers and staff. Standard 8, meaningful engagement of families and community. And Standard 9, operations and management.